Hello again, and welcome back to our Safe Titles podcast. And I'm here with world-renowned, famous Stepline Potter, co-host of Safe Titles, Kelvin Crosby. Hey, Kel.
Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you, even though I can't see you. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm so excited today. We're going to just kind of have a
We're talking
conversation.
about you, Kel, today. We
Oh,
have
why? I mean,
more to find out, I tell you. People need to know why the CBS vans are rolling up. Is that right? Is it CBS?
CBS is definitely coming in today and seeing the new Deafblind Potter studio. So I'm like, oh boy, didn't realize I'm going to get this famous this fast.
That's
I'm
pretty
not sure if I like the
exciting.
fame, but and a lot of responsibility. So
Yes. Well, you can handle it. You can
I hope
handle it.
so.
So we want to know. Well, I think I know the answer to this. We met you before the fame.
Yes, you knew me when.
Just like a week before, but it was still before. And it was your idea for us to start this Safe Titles podcast. And so people want to know, everyone wants to know, why on earth did you come to help out Little Safe Toddles? What brought you here? What's your
So
story?
I think when we first were introduced, we were introduced by Amy Parker, a professor
Yes.
out of Portland State University, and she's a good friend of both of ours. And we were introduced, and I was like, our first meeting was almost 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and you just told me why the belt cane was so important and why this is going to transform toddlers' lives. And I'm like, interesting. I have to believe this. I gotta experience this for myself. So like several months later, because we were gonna work on a grant together, and you sent me a belt cane, and I opened it up, I tried to be like a little toddler myself and trying to experience it. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And when like you just feel the with the belt and like you can feel the tactile parts of the belt. I'm like, this is just amazing. Like it's giving me everything I needed, like and more. It's telling me about the floor changes. I don't have to touch it, and I'm like, this is granted. I'm too big for the belt, but I could
Yes.
understand from a toddler perspective. Like this is incredible,
Mm.
and I was at that point realizing there's something really valuable about this product that could really transform blind individuals' lives that are toddlers, especially as they increase and get older. How if they get their gross motor skills at a toddler stage and start getting those same skills that we get if you had vision or you had other services and all that stuff, that could be a game changer. And so I was like, all right, how do I help you? Like, how can I use my skills and my ability to help you move the product forward? Because we're literally disrupting the current status quo, and you were disrupting, and you still are, and people still don't believe. Why do you need a belt cane? But
All right.
you were disrupting it, and I was like, I'm on because I've already been working on a product that's been disrupting the status quo. And people are questioning me, like, well, why do you want a robot that guides you everywhere you want to go? Why would you want anything other than a cane? I mean, it's like,
Right.
and so I was like, I can get on this wagon because I could see we just took a simple cane and made it into a format that was just simple. And it was easy for the end user to experience it and navigate with it. And so, just on the product itself, I was sold. I mean, I just wish it was big enough for me, but then we got problems in that category. But it was one of those things I could believe in this right off the bat. I could experience the cane, and I knew that this was revolutionizing toddlers that are visually impaired. So,
It's interesting because I should now expect it, but I'm always pleasantly surprised when I get an answer unexpectedly. And the response that you had when you and I spoke after you got the belt cane was one of those times. It was so wonderful to hear your explanation about what it the vibrations were coming
Mm-hmm.
through and how much you appreciated the metal ball bearings at the
Mm-hmm.
bottom and um plate, the metal plate at the bottom, and how you really said that there's a lot of information coming through to the belt, through everything, transmitting just a wonderful amount of sensation. And as the
Mm-hmm.
person who has, invested a lot of your safety in alternative sensory information inputs, it was an educated opinion about, and you really, I think you said the tip design was such, it was our own unique design that you'd
Yeah.
never seen before. And you thought, well, there may be some practical applications to this
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Exactly. And now is the part that like you could tell like I've been developing inventing canes for a little over 4 years. I mean, I might be 5 years now, but when I was doing that process, like I played with so many different tips and so many different materials and so many different products and testing materials and just I want that amount of information to come to me every single time naturally. If I get it naturally, then I don't have to worry about all these artificial technology stuff that's out there, like vibration motors and uh, sounds and all these things that really in don't help me in my everyday life. And I'm like, with this, I was like, this is natural. It's completely coming to my body, allows my brain to focus on my sensories of my other parts of my body, and I don't have to worry about feeling things that I shouldn't be feeling. I can then alert myself to the right amount of information that I need to be able to move forward. So that's why, especially the ball bearings on the bottom, the vibration that it provides to the aim parts, then it shoots up the cane. So this is something I don't know if you realize this, but when you attach a tube to another part, it then creates another set of haptic communication. Because we've seen this with the current product that I'm working on, is when we attached the handle to our canes, we saw a massive like echolocation, like acoustics, come from the cane because they weren't one solid piece. And because the canes are multiple parts, it provides a different sound and it provides a different echolocation for individuals that have hearing. For me, I don't have the hearing.
Right.
I can't do echolocation, but from people that I've talked to, they're getting echolocation from a different perspective than they ever had from a cane. And this your cane does that. And so
Yeah, because it has the different parts down at the
mhm,
lower
exactly.
part of the, and as well as up by the waist. Well, it's interesting. Coming here has been such a great addition for us, and I know it's an addition to what is already a very full schedule. So in one of our earliest episodes, I think it might even been the second episode or the first episode, we asked you about your early life and your disability. Now I'd like to ask you about your career and what you do, um, you know, generally. What are your things on your to-do list every day?
I just sit on the couch and eat Cheetos all day and
Right, right. I don't think that kind of energy could be happy sitting on a couch for very long. You
that's
bring
for sure.
a lot of energy.
Yeah. So basically my my career started when I started teaching um professors at the university level how to make their classroom universally accessible to people with disabilities. And through that process, I started helping them create their curriculum so that when they're in the classroom, if there's people with certain type of disabilities, how to make it more accessible. and then how to make sure their online class part of their curriculum was accessible. And so I would sit down with professors and lay out their whole curriculum and say, all right, this is the areas that needs to be a little bit more accessible. Here's how you would do that. And so I did that for
Ah,
almost 2 years at the university level. I don't miss it though. It was a lot of work and a lot of editing and a lot of accessibility analysis and yeah, I don't miss it, but I know how to do it.
sounds like it.
So
University
yeah, yeah,
paperwork.
exactly. So then I graduated and went and worked for the state of California doing job development for those that are visually impaired. And in my first 6 months of being there, I placed over 10 individuals into jobs. And I was the fastest job placement developer for the state of California during that time and be able to put visually impaired people into the jobs. And but there was a problem that I saw though, and that problem was is I could get these people jobs and I knew how to do it well. Like I could do it easily. But I would get you a job, I could do the job, but my client couldn't. And so there was a gap between my clients being able to have the technical ability to do that job, and because they didn't have the technical ability to do that job, I there was no solution for me to provide that. Like I couldn't give them the time needed to give them the technical abilities to do a job like scanning barcodes and reading using voiceover to do that or just different things like that. So I
Yeah,
realized, well, maybe I should develop an adaptive technology training program that helps my clients be able to do these type of jobs. So I got fortunate to work for a nonprofit, and they allowed me to build out this program. So that way, I essentially built from scratch an adaptive technology training program where if you went to college or you wanted to go do an admin job or you wanted whatever, I had a curriculum that allowed you to take what you knew and your education or whatever you had, and I can get you the technical ability to do that job visually impaired. And you could
nice.
do that. And so I did that
What's
for
the name of it? Does it still exist
yeah,
or
still this. So it's with the San Diego Futures Foundation. And so it's still running strong. I think that
nice?
now they're up to five instructors now.
Wonderful.
So yeah, because I hired on three, and then I think they just took on two more. But during that time, I realized well, there was another problem that was coming, and that problem was there were sorry the feedback coming from the outside. So the problem I was trying to solve was my students weren't coming to class, and we were losing money for not our students not being in class. And so I was like, how do I get them to come to class to make them feel safe and feel okay with it and so forth? And then I was like, why not try to build a blind cane that allows them to get here safely and travel here safely? Because where we were located and where it's located, it was pretty intense neighborhood where a lot of traffic, a lot of cars, a lot of information coming at you at once. Like, how could I
Did
settle
they
that
tell you
down?
why? Did they tell you why they weren't coming?
So there were a variety of reasons. One, it was just a daunting trek to get there. I mean, you had
Got
to
it.
do a couple buses to get there. You had to, um, for some, it was a 2 hour trip to get there every day,
Right.
and so you're spending 4 hours on the public transit and so forth. So there were just different barriers, but the number one thing that I saw was is that my students were a lot of them were scared because a lot of times they would just lose. They would go blind literally within the last 6 months. They barely knew their cane skills, and they're trying to get to class so that they could go back to work
Mm.
and be able to go do the same job they had. And
They weren't used to spending
it,
2 hours on a
yeah,
commute.
so yeah, exactly. And so
They're
that's
used
where I
to
was like,
driving.
could I provide a solution that made the travel part simple and allowed you to come to my class? So that's when I started building the robotic blind cane. and basically the autonomous cane that allows you to go anywhere you want to go. Well, through that process, we realized that's a lot of money to build, and there's a lot of technology involved. But I had an incident with one of my students that got hit by a car, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized I've been hit 3 times in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to solve this problem because I don't want my students being so scared to come to class to try to get their freedom back and being worried about the travel. And so that's when I started creating the lighted blind cane. So that's kind of full speed to current day. Current day in December, I launched another business because I just can't help myself. But because I needed more funding for the lighted blind cane and for what we were doing, I said I'm going to launch another business that will attract people to help me fund the rest of the lighted blind cane so we can get it to market. And that's how I launched the Deafblind Potter. So full circle, that's how we're here. So
You learned pottery where? Where did you learn
I
to
learned it in
throw
high
pots?
school. So I was
Yeah,
I've been doing pottery for about 16 years, and then during the time I transitioned from the state to work start the adaptive technology training program, that's when I stopped because I
yeah.
just didn't have enough time to be in the studio and produce. And before I went under the name Deaf or Blind Kelvin Pottery, and then when we launched the Deafblind Potter, we realized really I'm not just blind. I'm both, and so
Right.
I needed to represent both of them.
Well, the
Um,
same thing happened to Helen Keller. Like,
yeah,
yeah, she was both deaf and blind, and the AFB, the American Foundation for the Blind, kind of usurped the blindness. But it's important to know that that's even harder.
yeah, yeah, and it's been a journey. I mean, I literally have lost most of all my clarity now um, since June of last year. So I mean, it's been almost a year since I've lost all my
Mm,
clarity in
yeah.
June, and it's been a tough road because this is the first time where I no longer can see enough. I don't have enough vision anymore to do some of the stuff I was doing for my company, and so I'm having to outsource it all because I don't have the ability to do it anymore, and
Yeah.
so so that's been that
And
has been
you have a unique situation because of growing up sighted.
yep.
All of your gestures and listening and how you look to the speaker
Hmm.
makes it seem as if, an actual, person like me who's even in the field, you just
Yep.
have to constantly go, well, Grace, just going to let you know, I cannot see that. And
Yep.
that's important. And so that's a part of a conversation that has to be, kind of weary, like you get a little
Hmm.
tired of having to remind, but as far as the way the viewer is looking at you, you don't have any of the what you would expect someone who has now a significant vision
Yep.
impairment. And that's I'm sure that could be very, it's it's like you constantly have to broach this with people, and how and it can be very confusing for folks
Yeah.
who cannot understand what that even
Mhm.
means. Like, I have some semblance, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Well, I
hard.
mean, I think that's the beauty of what's happening with the Deafblind Potter is that I have now have the opportunity to talk to you about deaf blindness. I get an opportunity to talk to you about what I see. And that's the beauty of technology is that you can make the camera do a lot of things and
Yeah.
force you to see what I see. Um, and and what's so interesting to me in is people are they're curious, but at the same time they're a little worried. Like it's just contagious, you know. Um,
Oh boy.
and so this is where
Yeah, through TikTok you'll get it for sure.
so yeah, so it that part has been quite interesting, but at the same time, we have the opportunity now to really provide a safe space to have this conversation because there was this whole thing about Helen Keller being fake and a fraud or whatever, blah blah blah, and now I'm not. You're talking to a deafblind person now, and we're gonna have this conversation, and I'm gonna explain what I can do and show you proof that I'm doing it. And
Right.
how does this work across the board for people who are deafblind? And I think that's something that's very very valuable in what we're doing. And so yeah, so
Well, it's
that.
interesting that first of all, one of the things is to say when someone reads the term deaf blind,
Mhm,
um, they go to the lowest idea of how challenging, and probably immediately, without even knowing what they're thinking of, think that, well, there's probably an intellectual disability that goes along with
mhm,
that. So the idea that you can first and foremost show that you can be dual sensory impaired and still
mhm.
be quite smart,
Yep.
and capable, and technology savvy, savvier than most, and because that's something that you like. It is,
Mhm.
the fact that you also are deaf blind doesn't necessarily mean that you would also be good at technology, but the
Yep.
fact that you are good at technology and also deaf blind is just an adjacent set of things. That one is not because of the other, and that's
Yep.
annoying. That you almost have to say deaf blind, and then also me. I'm just a
Yep.
person, a man who has a career, a family, and a
Yep.
goal to achieve success. And then also that whole thing with Helen Keller, as she, even in her time, was said to be a faker. Not
Mhm,
that she wasn't necessarily deafblind, but that she could not have done the things that she did, which was write her biography
mhm,
and graduate college, and
mhm,
and she had they had no technology. She had to finger spell everything into a hand, and then that
mhm,
had to be transcribed and then and put in. And so it's really, she's had a tough road, and she did so much. She was a natural engaged person who had political ideas, who had
mhm,
a wonderful creative life.
mhm,
And yes, simply because she had the sensory disabilities, was questioned, but whether or not she's being honest about what she actually did do. It's just, it's a tough place to be in, that people will both elevate you to the highest pedestal of a, but then really think it's just not real. And
mhm.
it's like, wait, hold on, which, can we just let me be on earth and let me be real also? That's enough. Just
Yeah.
let me have my spot, and I'll take it from there.
Yeah. Well, and that's the part that really was eye opening for me. Like I've never hid that I can still see a little bit.
Right.
I mean today I
Right.
would not the same like I used to be,
Right.
but when I was in my early ages of being legally blind, like I could see clear. Like straight in that tunnel vision, bam! Like I could see clear. Like some of the my pottery that I did was still a little bit with my vision. I mean now, forget it. Um,
Right.
but there was times where like I did. You'd be like, well, why does he need a guide dog? Why does he need a cane? What? Like he knows where he's going. Like shoot. And so there were times where people didn't quite understand what I was going through, and but they didn't want to understand, so, and they just cast judgment, and
Right.
that's kind of what we're seeing. And
Right.
so now, being the publicity that we've gotten with the Good Morning America and with TikTok and soon CBS and all that stuff, we're getting all this credibility to prove to people that, hey, just know my story. If you learn my story, I'll help you understand. It doesn't mean that I'm stupid. I mean, I always love those
Right.
ones. Like you get a comment that says, "Well, they shouldn't make it accessible to you because you're deafblind." I said, "Well, how am I supposed to put food on the table? How am I supposed to
Right.
feed my son and my wife and take care of our home and pay my rent and pay my electricity and cover my bases, pay my car insurance because my wife had got a car and just all these things. Like, how am I supposed to do all that? And you're saying I can't fight for accessibility so that way I can continue to run my business by myself with my support team. I'm sorry. No, I gotta put food on my table. And
Right.
at the end of the day, I so I'm gonna prove to you that I'm putting food on my table. And I'm proving to you that no, I might have these challenges of my vision loss and my hearing loss, but I can. And I'm going to. And I'm going to overcome those barriers. And you can keep putting barriers at me, but they're just like little cones on the side of the road. I'm gonna knock them over, and we're gonna keep moving forward.
Right.
um, and so as a
It's
whole,
interesting because yeah,
so
accessibility for technology, it was just not thought about as,
mhm,
and the whole climate of, say, Silicon Valley and coders and people who are creating new technology, they're allowed in their own minds to say, well, we stay up 24 hours a day, every day, all day long, meeting these impossible deadlines to create things you'd never heard of. And we don't have time to worry about such a small segment of the population that might, they probably don't even think that much about it. They just want to do what they want to do. They want to make a new functionality with an app. It comes
mhm,
out, it's TikTok. And then they're astonished that people can't, should want to have them have made it accessible. But why is that in 2021 when it is, if they had programmed it accessible from the beginning, would never have made any, it would have just been the right thing to do. But
yeah,
this and that, they've known that about coding for 20 years. I mean, at least 10 years. And as long as I know, well, they just decided, or they don't even consider it. And then they say, well, we have to go back end and retrofit, and it's all this work. It's like, if you'd done it from the beginning when you were supposed to, it would have been a seamless ability to allow everyone in. And that's
mhm,
what we need. That's what the law says, and
yeah.
reasonable accommodation.
So, and this is an interesting point. Me being a coder and being able to build apps and websites myself, like I've done there. I've been there. I've done that. And so it's hard for me to see, oh, it takes more work. No. It's all it is a greater than less than sign with a code tag and then bam. Then you're identified. There are
Doesn't
certain
seem too
things that
hard.
it's not that difficult. It's an extra four keystrokes.
Oh,
Um,
man.
and so
That's
this
really not much.
no, it's not. And like, but people don't like. I worked so hard to get this little icon to make it into a button, and that's a lot of work. But you had to insert a picture somewhere. Once you insert a picture to make that little icon, just tag it.
Right.
Make it a alt text. Bam. Like so these are things that as developers, and I mean if you want to see my website and you want to see how I build out accessible website, you can go to deafblindpotter.com. You can go to smartguideinc.com. You can go to these my website kelvincrosby.com. So those are websites that I built out with different platforms. And I do that on purpose. One, I say diversified on platforms, but also to prove if you want to argue accessibility and building out an accessible website with me, you're going to lose because what
Good.
every time I build a website, it's not that much work to make it as you build it. Every time, oh, there's an icon, bam, just add the alt text or add the button alt text or whatever. There's just different things like that to make it just easier to work with. I get when we start getting into these other realms of live feeds and all these things, those are a little bit more difficult, but just simple technology, simple coding is fairly easy to do.
Which
So,
I love that I will make a point, of course, on the safetitles.org website that anytime there is a picture to add some alt text. And it makes me feel good. I don't know how
mhm,
other to put it, because I would hate to not have something available to everyone. And then of course I'll add the relevant bits, and I always want to consider what is alt text, right? What do you want to say about a picture that's not
mhm,
already available? And it really, I read about it and I look at it, and it's, you know, I think it's an opportunity to convey the point of the picture, the information that's relevant in the picture, the reason for putting the picture in there in a way that is not just like my reason is, but through the elements that are relevant. And it's just another way to include it. If I have a data table, I put all the
mhm,
data in and I try
mhm.
to make it readable, because otherwise it's just a nothing on there, and
Yep.
and that's not helping
What?
anyone.
And I do want to make this clear though. Alt text is not the answer. Like it's only the answer for pictures.
Okay.
So if but
It's
on the
one little
yeah,
tiny answer that I'm able
yeah.
to do.
So that's what, like if you're using Shopify or using Wix or Squarespace or some of those that they have that ability to identify your pictures. But what I'm talking about are like TikTok. They have these different icons
Right,
on the
I understood that, right.
so yeah, so they have these different
Buttons need to
icons on
be
the
accessible
bottom.
to you so you can
Yeah,
use them, and they're
yeah.
not.
So cause for me now, I had to count every. I have to count though to know where I go.
Right.
And so once I figure out, I mean, it's just a matter of trial and error, and then figuring out, oh, I messed this up. Oh, shoot, I gotta go fix this and so forth. But all that to say, all text is the baseline, but below that, we a lot of the
It's not the
ways,
same as a TikTok
yeah,
platform is not accessible because of that, what you just described, which is when you use a screen reader,
mm-hmm,
and it has then this vibral tactile sound feature that when you run your finger along it in the right location, it's difficult. We use them at Hunter College. We use all the apps and these features as part of our O&M training.
mm-hmm,
And essentially because yes, it does, information is power. It's critical to understand the vast improvement. However, learning to triple click, learning how to navigate, learning if you can't see the whole screen, where you put your finger may just be just below or just above, or finding that right
mm-hmm,
spot to hear the click is also, it's a little challenging. So if we could
yep,
make it where you not only hear the but it says input your information, or
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
start the video, or
yep,
edit whatever it is that that button does, so that you were certain, and then you'd have to triple click it and activate it,
exactly,
and etc. There's a lot that is wonderful about it, but that's very challenging to hope
mm-hmm,
that because of it's the third click, and maybe it's the correct third click, maybe you're on the fourth click but you missed the first click because you don't see it. And that's what's so challenging, is it's so visually based.
mm-hmm,
And when you don't have vision, it's unnecessarily challenging
yeah.
to use.
So yeah, I mean, and I this is why, like for me, I'm always looking at trying to solve the problem, and as you've seen, that's why I'm here with the safe toddlers, because I'm trying to help the little toddlers have that ability to make these problem solving later in life. Because if I start here, I'm gonna have a big set of little soldiers coming
That's
out
right.
of their toddler's age because they had a belt cane in their hands. I
That's
mean,
right.
to me, if I can empower a little toddler to learn their braille, to learn their technology, to learn the access to the world is right there at their fingertips. Literally, this is why we're here with the belt cane.
Yeah.
This is why the belt cane is the most incredible, simplest tool out there for a toddler. 'Cause it just
Yeah.
makes sense. because
You got to be safe to learn. You have to
exactly,
feel
and you
safe
have to
and
feel comfortable,
self-confident.
and you have to build that those motor skills when you're trying to build those motor skills and wondering, well, is there a wall there? I don't know. I mean, so this is why I believe in it so much, and why I'm here. So, but
Yay, we're so appreciative.
so
Now, did you want to tell us a little bit about the lighted blind cane
yes, so
invention?
so the lighted blind cane is basically what it is. It lights up the whole cane,
I have
and
one.
she has one, and I currently have 10 out for testing or 5 out for testing at the moment, and we eventually um oh, do you have you have that? I see something moving. Um, so yeah, so basically, it just looks like a normal lighted blind cane. There's a switch in the handle, that just turns on and off, and it has a nice click sound to it. And then it recharges at the top. Um, and we're still in the beginning stages of the technology because of just cost. But this is where we're at. I mean, if you have some vision, you have some low vision, and you can distinguish light, this is the perfect cane for you. If you're completely blind, wait until my next version. But so we'll be putting out probably um maybe by August. I'm not that, don't quote me on that, but probably by August we might have 40 available to put out to the public.
Wonderful.
And so I'm just super excited because I get
It has
emails
a
all the time.
rolling marshmallow tip,
Yeah, so
right? A
you can
rolling
interchange
marshmallow
it.
tip.
So you can have a roller
Okay.
marshmallow. You can have the jumbo ball. You can have the
Okay.
metal tip. You can do the pencil tip. I encourage you not to use those two because that requires a sweep tap.
Right.
Um,
I agree.
because it's just a little too heavy for sweeping, or tapping.
How does the tip come off?
So it twists off. So it's a
Twist.
screw
Okay.
on.
The black part
No, the white part.
or the white part?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
so So they're made by Ambitech. Um, so any
The
Ambitech,
tips.
yeah, the 8 millimeter screw on tips will fit in there. So you can use any of
Cool.
their tips, and
Very nice.
so we're gonna be finishing up the last part of that on the end cap right there, where it screws in, making it metal, so that way it they're better in the weather. But yeah, I mean it you get about, I think we're at 5 maybe 8 hours of battery life on the LED strips. So and they're solid. Because my goal was to get 4, and we surpassed that. So you got a solid light. You know that you're gonna be, if you charge it at least once a day. It takes 2 hours to charge, and so if you charge it if you're at work, and it'll be ready by the time you leave and you go home, or you're gonna go out for a party. You got a lighted cane that can light up the world and make it cool and all that stuff. And um, but
What I like is the people will say, well, the canes or tape is already reflective, but um, that's only when a headlight comes by. And
mhm,
really, this allows you to have light anytime you want it to be turned on
mhm,
to announce that a white cane is coming.
yep,
And um, I think that it's important to understand most of the innovation in long canes has come from users, and Ambutech will tell you that all of their ideas for variations on the cane tips and etc has come from comments from users, and that's what you are, and that's what the people that were coming to your trainings are,
mhm.
that they have real concerns. And if O&M and the rest of the world would just listen to people and hear them and say, wow, maybe one size doesn't fit all, and innovation has always been the road to making things that people need,
Mhm.
we would be good. And I wish we could figure out what it is about blind babies that makes people want to see them crash into walls and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." But we won't solve all the problems here today, Cal. But
No, we
we'll keep
won't.
trying, and together we will change the world.
Exactly. We will. We will. And create more safety and help
Safe
visually impaired people.
mobility,
Yep.
it's the key to learning.
Exactly. Exactly. So
There's nothing wrong with the word safe. Listen, no one has said it means 100%. No one says that wearing a bell cane or using a lighted cane can put you in a bubble of safety. But if you increase the percentage of times that you are prevented from catastrophe and
Mhm.
decrease the number of times the catastrophe falls unaware until it happens, that is an improvement that everyone wants.
Yeah.
And there is no other word for it other than, instead of getting harmed, you're safe. And if someone
Mhm.
wants to come up with another word to understand it, I was explaining, someone explained to me, well, maybe it was a student of mine. She said, maybe the word safe mobility, if you look at a child who's simply sitting, they are safe. And I'm like, right, that's true. But I don't think, yeah. So safe mobility in the fact that they're moving, and that we want to get going. We want to feel like we can move. There should be no hierarchy that says the ultimate best is without a device, or without help. Certainly,
Mhm.
people who want to get a ride or have a way to get wheels, not have to take a bus, should
Mhm.
it be held up to scrutiny as to being somehow not not a disabled person? And it's like, wait a second, hold on, why do we have separate rules and different rules for people
Yep.
with disabilities, higher holding them to a higher standard of difficulty? Like, it must be more difficult for you just because we think otherwise. You don't appreciate I don't know what the thinking is. I don't want to think about it anymore.
Well, I think this is what I found when coming back to my first major job that I did, changing policies and educating professors and making their classroom accessible. So many people don't know what that means, and so many people don't understand, and that's where why I also felt it was so important to do this podcast, is because we need to educate. And as more people understand and get clarity of how powerful the belt cane is, how powerful universal design is for universities and colleges and just simple school or whatever, this is the path to make it universal accessible. But it's gonna take a while because you got a lot of brains to hit, and until you can hit them and they get emotionally involved, it's gonna take time. But that's why we're here.
Yeah, we'll do it. That's why
So
we're here. And I want to thank you so much for having this conversation, doing what you're doing, and for your support, friendship, and ideas. I mean, you really are being a terrific advocate for safe toddles and for these blind toddlers. And thank you for everything,
well,
Cal.
I appreciate the opportunity and trusting me that we can go down this path. So, all right, guys. Well, that wraps up the Safe Toddle podcast. So, if you want to get a hold of us, you can email us at info@safetoddle.org. If you would like to go to our website and donate to help a safe toddler be able to travel safely using the belt cane, you can go there and you can donate to purchase a belt cane for that safe toddler. As well, if you want to find us on social media, you can get us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Are you on Snapchat?
Oh no, I should be.
No, you don't need to be.
Should I be?
No,
I don't
we're
think
not on
so.
we're not on Snapchat. So uh, just just go to those platforms and go type in Safe Toddles, and you'll find us right there. You guys have a good one and
And tell us what platforms you're on, and we'll
oh,
be there too.
so Deafblind Potter is on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I just got on Twitter,
Twitter.
and also
Yeah.
my website is deafblindpotters.com. As well, you can email me at lbl@deafblindpotter.com. So you guys have a great one. and have a safe Mobility Monday.
Yes, and live beyond your challenges. Shallow. Safe Toddles podcast is made possible by generous donations from people like you who understand the benefits safe mobility is to blind toddler development. At Safe Toddles, our mission is to provide toddlers with mobility, visual impairment, and blindness with a solution for walking safely. A pediatric bell cane for clear path detection.